Hiya, welcome to My Compound Life. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, great habits that we need to manage our assets, and of course, we build freedom. Okay, and that will hopefully be financial freedom for all of us. No need to worry about money, but more importantly, you get more free time back. Okay, so this is a daily Bitcoin video. So I'm just gonna quickly go over what's happening. It is the 12th of December. The time of recording, it's around 9:30 a.m. Very, very early in the morning. As you can see outside, it's pretty dark and miserable right now. Some rain, not too heavy, hopefully, because I still want to get out and be active later on in the morning. But certainly, let's look at whether the Bitcoin price is similar to the weather in the West Midlands in the UK. Bitcoin price is at around 92,100. I think it has been retracing between 90 to 93k this past 24 hours. So not too much price action ever since after the US Fed announcement, rate cut announcement. So not happy. But anyway, let's look at the fear and greed index. We're currently at 29. That's the fear level. It's actually similar to yesterday too, at a fear level of 29. But certainly compared to last week, we do have improvements in terms of sentiment because last week we were at around 25, and overall for the months it was around 26. So 29, I think, with more users, with more investors, after they came to their attention of Jerome Powell's announcement of the rate cut, I think people are getting less fearful now and really start to decide, what they might want to do with their capital, right? So it's a gradual, slow grind up in terms of the fear and greed index, and we kind of see that in the Bitcoin price movement too. So in terms of Bitcoin ETF, for the 11th of December, that's yesterday, the Thursday of 11th of December, it was a outflow of 78 million. Okay, the biggest outflow actually came from Fidelity of $103 million. Okay, so we'll get into a little bit of Fidelity in the news that I might want to cover in just a moment. But for overall, I think in terms of Bitcoin for the week overall, it is FYI until Monday until Thursday. We are Friday today. So far, for the week, we are at around $227 million worth of inflow into Bitcoin. Okay, I think that's pretty positive because compared to last week, we are essentially negative 88 million in terms of total outflow. But what does it look like for Ethereum? So in terms of Ethereum ETF flow, for yesterday, it was negative. It was an outflow of $42.3 million. And what about Solana? Solana ETF, for 11th of December, it's actually 11 million, okay, inflow. Okay, so for Solana, it's still pretty strong, still plenty of inflow, but certainly in terms of the volumes will never be as big as Bitcoin or Ethereum. Okay, so it does seem we are, if we still appreciate and look at Bitcoin still follows through the 4-year cycle, we are actually now moving out of the peak of the 4-year cycle. So historically, in the past two Bitcoin cycle, essentially, these are the period where we will continue to trend lower, and then continue to our bear market. And historically, for the past 3 cycles, the bear cycle essentially starts like now. So it will trend lower. And then, of course, the cycle low will be towards Q4 next year. But it will take us approximately 12 months to get out of the bear market. But of course, there are a lot of chats. ZZ from Binance are talking about this will be a super cycle. The 4-year cycle is dead. Tom Lee is heavily in CNBC. A lot of the financial news that also calls out 4-year cycle is dead. Bitcoin, in fact, follows through the business cycle, ISM, and so forth, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as Bitcoin price, we don't get back to the kind of 50 days moving average of approximately, I think, maybe 102,000. I wouldn't call a bull market anytime soon, right? Until we at least get back, clinch onto 100K or 102,000 USD, by the way. So in terms of, for the now, the situation is we are pretty much range bound between 92K to 94K. And that's 94K, as apparently that's the resistance zone, right? So we constantly try to break that and try to stay on that range for quite some time now. I think for about a week or 2 weeks. It does seem we cannot actually get through, right? So that's a pretty huge issue. If we cannot continue to push through 94K, that means we won't be able to get back to 100,000, right? So if we continue to range bound at around 92 to 94,000, very, very likely investors, the sentiment will continue to reduce. The fear and greed index will definitely indicate that eventually indicates more people will think that 4-year cycle is finished and it's time to move off and shift the money investment somewhere else and not into Bitcoin anymore, right? So that's the current situation. So, but we are also seeing, the range bound, essentially it's driven by whales, big OG investors of Bitcoin. They are unloading Bitcoin essentially for the month of December, right? Approximately $3.4 billion worth of Bitcoin was actually sold in December, this month's December, right? So according to on-chain data. So I do felt a lot of people still follows through the 4-year cycle, right? Very likely they have earned substantial amount from investing just on Bitcoin. So that's why they wanted to de-risk, right? So it probably makes sense. And of course, Bitcoin, it briefly dipped under 90,000 yesterday, mostly because global markets turned risk off after weak, very, very weak tech earnings and mixed signals from the Feds. Of course, we saw a small bounce today, but I don't foresee Bitcoin will have too much of an improvements. So I'm afraid very likely the Santa rally for Bitcoin, at least for December, will be cancelled. Let's look at additional Bitcoin news, specifically relevant to the UK market. So that's where I'm currently resided. In terms of UK retail Bitcoin interests, it's definitely taking up as Bitcoin stabilized at around 94,000 USD, which is equivalent to about 73,000 pounds. So local exchanges report slightly higher retail BTC buying activity this week as Bitcoin held above key psychological level in GBP terms. So apparently 73,000 pounds, that's our psychological terms. So people are stacking, right? I think to a certain extent, UK retail behavior often follows US trends with shorter delay, right? So people in the US, thinks that Bitcoin at around $89,000-$90,000, it's worth the while to buy in, right? So, and apparently British people, they follow similar characteristic, and at around 73,000 pounds, that's where British people, we accumulate, right? So let me know in the comment if you are accumulating at 73,000 pounds, right? I think this is mildly bullish because we just need people continue to stack, right? So I think the best thing to do for Bitcoin, stack whenever Bitcoin is at the right price for you and I. Stack it when it's at the fair value. Fair value, at least in my terms, will be around 75,000 USD. Let me check what does that stands for. 75,000 USD, not 75,000 pound. That would be around 56,000 pound. Okay, so I'll be stacking, especially when we get to about 56,000 pound. But anyway, I think the rising of British people or European people are buying. It's essentially because of GBP, that the strengths are our Great British Pounds, right? Several UK market commentators note that sterling volatility has led some traders to increase BTC allocation as a hedge against currency weakness, right? So I think recently pound and euros has definitely gone up, and usually this would indicate that Bitcoin price become very, very attractive, right? So that's why traders tend to want to, accumulate more Bitcoin when the US dollars are a lot weaker, right? So that's also another explanation that, there could be some fluctuation, some improvement in terms of Bitcoin price over the past weeks. And of course, UK FCA warns influencer again about crypto promotions. So it's kind of like a warning to me. But having said that, I've only got 17 followers, right? 17 subscribers. So if you haven't already subscribed, please hit subscribe. Please hit the like. I'll be coming out with more quality daily content for Bitcoin and for MyCompoundLife, and of course talk about my YouTube journey. So that's something that I'm quite chuffed about, that I've worked through for the past couple of months, and so far I've got 17 subscribers, right? So if you can become my 18th, 19th, 20th subscribers, leave me a comment and let me know. Okay, so UK FCA warns influence again about crypto promotion. So essentially, FCA issued another advisory reminding UK content creators and fintech apps about rules governing crypto ads. Okay, so it's good. It's good. I think all of this indicates that there are more acceptance of Bitcoin plus crypto, and it essentially requires more regulations. in the UK. So I think all of these are very, very positive for the UK market and for the rest of the world too. And of course, UK digital asset property rules gaining traction in legal sector. Okay, so I've spoke about such rules in some of the earlier videos, so go watch that if you haven't. I think it's worthwhile to coverage this because as Bitcoin and crypto and any other digital assets are getting much more recognition in the UK, it's always great to have more rules and regulations to govern that, right? So law firms in the UK are publishing guidance and seminars explaining the UK's new legal recognition of crypto as property, right? And why is that important, right? Because better legal clarity for Bitcoin or crypto owners improves confidence for high net worth individuals and family offices in the UK, right? So plenty of the high net worth individual family offices, they want to get into a faster running horse, a faster running asset such as Bitcoin and crypto, right? Essentially, with all of this in place, it gives them, it legitimizes the whole thing, right? So we'll be able to bring in more liquidity into Bitcoin as well as crypto, and at the same time, getting more people that aren't truly aware of Bitcoin. I'm not sure whether there are a lot. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of it, but people still think that it's a Ponzi. It's not real. There's no intrinsic value to Bitcoin, right? So that's still that old school mindset of Bitcoin, which I think all of this can help to improve, right? So good things. I think it's all moving in motion in the UK. And of course, in the UK, last thing I want to cover for the UK is UK Neobank, that's NEO Bank, exploring Bitcoin on-ramp partnership. So insider chatter suggests 2 UK fintechs are evaluating partnership to offer Bitcoin purchase rail in early 2026. That's very good, right? Because I think with Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin 4-year cycle, that ended with an all-time high of 126,000 Bitcoin. Obviously, it wasn't parabolic upwards, blow off top type of movement. However, there's still something for us to look forward to for 2026, right? Because with more regulation in place, with Fed rate cut, there could be quantitative easing, although Fed this time, US Fed's not really calling it quantitative easing. They're calling it something else. But it is, in fact, quantitative easing. But they just simply have to keep on doing it more in the coming few months, right? So the next 2 quarters, it does seem institutions are pushing Bitcoin now, right? As opposed to the OG whales accumulate Bitcoin based on the 4 years Bitcoin cycle, right? It does seem this time around it is actually relevant to the banks, to the institutions pushing Bitcoin. So these are some really positive catalysts that I'm kind of seeing in the UK alone, plus in the US, right? So UK neobanks will be, on-ramp partnership for Bitcoin. And in the broader context, I think these are all bullish signal. Of course, no immediate price action for Bitcoin right now, but eventually, we'll be onboarding more and more people onto Bitcoin, and that's very positive. Okay, so looking at across the ponds, what's happening? I think Fidelity calls Bitcoin the sole loser of 2025, no doubt. I think 2025, I think overall Bitcoin's not really giving us much positive return, so that's very unfortunate. So Fidelity reports directly compared Bitcoin with equities like the Mag 7. Look at how great Tesla, Nvidia, etc. perform, right? And Bitcoin compares with gold and bonds. Of course, Bitcoin return compared to gold outperform anything, right? For 2025, of course. And says Bitcoin underperformed all of them this year. That makes perfect sense. But I guess for us, we'll just have to zoom out and see where Bitcoin actually, lead us to where we are, right? So I think from that Fidelity statement, it's a little bit playing down for Bitcoin, right? So that's something to ignore. So I guess this also reflect back to my earlier call out, where Fidelity was actually selling a lot of the Bitcoin ETF yesterday. The third thing, I think MSCI index exclusion threatens Bitcoin treasury stocks like MicroStrategy. That's something I've covered before. I think MicroStrategy or strategy is trying to fight back. So they have some documents that has been sent out back to MSCI to indicate that why they shouldn't be delisting. But it's definitely something to look out for, because all of a sudden, there could be more sell pressure coming if they cannot get back into the index. And of course, Coinbase introduction, tokenized stocks, and prediction markets strengthens Bitcoin on-ramp. Okay, so that's very positive. Coinbase new offering helped merge traditional finance with crypto, expanding the ecosystem around Bitcoin. Okay, that's very good. Not sure whether you guys are interested in this news, but Kwon, if you've been in the past cycle, I think Kwon, that's the founder of Terra Luna, that came out with some algorithmic stable coin that eventually led onto a death spiral. So he obviously, because of the collapse of the Terra Luna blockchain and ecosystem, a lot of investors lost a lot of money, right? So obviously Do Kwon was arrested eventually, I think somewhere in Montenegro, right? So again, he is now sentenced. Okay, so I think it's a good thing, because it's giving bad actors in the industry advance warning to let them know that don't go out and rug people, don't go out and rug pull, do the right things, right? So in a way, I think it's good, because it's giving Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain a better reputation in such a way. But having said that, I think within the Terra Luna, I think the treasury, they also bought heaps of Bitcoin. So if that's the case, will they be doing more sell-off to pay back the investors? I don't know, right? So that would be something to look out for, because there may also be some sell pressure coming from Terra Luna. I'm just thinking out loud, right? I think overall Bitcoin spent another day stuck in 90 to 92,000, or even 93,000. I think overall it is kind of like pretty weak market. Of course, on-chain data confirms that whales have sold more than $3.4 billion of Bitcoin this month, right, alone. So which helps explain why every attempt to break higher, trying to break 94,000, keeps getting rejected. So people must be setting at that range to sell off their Bitcoin, right? So I do see demand is improving from the ETF buying, but overall the momentum still pretty weak, and traders are cautious even after the Fed rate cut. So not gonna be very, very bullish for until end of December. But there's always the saying that mid month of December, that's when when Bitcoin picks up again. So you never know. Perhaps that's something to look forward to. But anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next Bitcoin daily video. If you like my content, please help me out. I'm a small content creator. Just hit the like, hit subscribe, and let me know, right? And if you become my 18th to 20th subscriber, just drop me a comment too, right? I really love hearing from you guys. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.